You can't get any closer than this. Some clubs might say that about the stadium right next to them, especially if they don't like their neighbor. Today we're visiting places where football passion and rivalry are divided by only a few meters. Some of them you'll recognize from the big stage, and others are a bit more mysterious. We'll visit arenas that neighbor each other across a fence, a river, or a single street. You'll see gigantic colossuses staring each other down and intimate venues living in the shadow of their famous cousins. Let's dive into the world of stadium neighbors. StadiumDB.com presents stadiums right next to each other. Liverpool, Anfield and Goodison Park. Distance, 732 meters. We start in England. In Liverpool, two legendary venues, Goodison Park and Anfield, are separated by Stanley Park. For over 130 years, this was the site of the famous Merseyside Derby, a unique and generally peaceful rivalry that ended here in 2025 with Everton's move to the riverfront. Although Anfield is associated exclusively with the Reds today, its first tenant was actually Everton, who moved out in 1892 after a rent dispute. Meanwhile, Goodison Park, known as the Grand Old Lady, was the home of the Toffees for years before the club relocated to the Hill Dickinson Stadium in 2025. Krakow, Synerise Arena and Stadion Cracovii. Distance, 667 meters. We move to Poland, where the stadiums of two eternal rivals, Wisła and Cracovia, are separated only by the Błonia Park Meadow. These are the arenas of one of the oldest and hottest rivalries in Europe, known as the Holy War, which, unlike in Liverpool, is rarely peaceful. Cracovia's stadium, picturesquely situated right by Castle, stands out with its low, modern form designed by Spanish architects. On the other side lies stadium currently named Synerise Arena, a massive concrete structure that recently gained a new glass facade for the European Games. Edinburgh, Murrayfield Stadium and Tynecastle Park. Distance, 428 meters. We head to Scotland to Edinburgh. It's a clash of Goliath and David. The National Rugby Stadium Murrayfield is the largest venue in the country, a massive arena that could hold 100,000 spectators and served as a military warehouse during the war. Tynecastle, on the other hand, is a typical British cauldron with very steep stands and a historic main stand designed by the famous Archibald Leitch. Interestingly, right next to Murrayfield, just 56 meters away, and the even smaller Hive Stadium is attached, creating a unique sporting triangle in this district. London, Allianz Stadium and Twickenham Stoop. Distance, 407 meters. In London, in a district considered the Mecca of rugby, the situation is unique. The National Twickenham Stadium and its smaller neighbor, Twickenham Stoop, are separated by a distance of just 407 meters. The gigantic Allianz Stadium, capable of holding 82,000 fans, was built on a former cabbage patch and is today the fortress of the England national team, where the famous song "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot" was born. Meanwhile, the intimate The Stoop is the home of Harlequins, named after Adrian Stoop, a legendary player who played in the first match at the neighboring Giant before his club got its own stadium. Bratislava, Tehelné Pole and Pasienky. Distance, 361 meters. Our journey leads to Bratislava, where two arenas stand on opposite sides of Bajkalska Street, Tehelné Pole and Pasienky. The situation here is specific because for years Pasienky was the home of Inter Bratislava, but after a merger with another club, the venue was taken over by its great rival, Slovan. Currently, Tehelko is the national stadium, packed with technology and equipped with a characteristic glowing facade. Lying opposite, Pasienky, the pasture, is a relic with stands on earthen embankments, to which Inter returned while searching for a permanent home. Gothenburg, Nya Ullevi and Gamla Ullevi. Distance, 255 meters. We land in Sweden, where right next to each other, separated by Skånegatan Street and tram tracks, stand Gamla Ullevi and Nya Ullevi. The situation here is unusual because Gamla Ullevi, which means old, is actually the newer stadium from 2009, built on the site of a historic venue and famous for the fact that jumping fans can cause vibrations in nearby buildings. On the other hand, Nya Ullevi, which means new, is a massive multi-purpose giant from the 50s, which hosted the finals of Euro '92 and the UEFA Cup. Nottingham, City Ground and Meadow Lane. Distance, 225 meters. We return to England to Nottingham. Only here are two professional football stadiums, City Ground and Meadow Lane, separated by the River Trent. Today, City Ground is the home of two-time European champions, Nottingham Forest, with characteristic stands right on the water. Lying on the other side of the river, Meadow Lane belongs to the oldest professional club in the world, and after reconstruction in the 90s is a modern, albeit intimate venue with 4 separate stands. Avellaneda, Estadio Presidente Perón and Estadio Libertadores de América. Distance, 200 meters. We move to hot Argentina, to the city of Avellaneda. Here, the Clásico de Avellaneda is played, and the stadiums of two giants, Independiente and Racing Club, stand almost wall-to-wall, separated by just 200 meters. The home of the former, Estadio Libertadores de América, scares rivals with 4 towers in the corners called Devil's Throats. The neighboring El Cilindro is a unique, perfectly round arena, which thanks to its shape is sometimes called the Colosseum. And if you want us to be even closer to your stadium world, click subscribe. It's the only way not to miss the next football trips we have in store. Durban, Moses Mabhida Stadium and Kings Park. Distance, 189 meters. In Durban, South Africa, the situation is paradoxical. In the Kings Park Sporting Complex stand 2 colossuses separated only by a parking lot. The city authorities, instead of modernizing the existing Kings Park for the 2010 World Cup, decided to build a completely new, spectacular arena right next to it. Moses Mabhida Stadium is an architectural gem with a huge arch and empty stands because the venue has no permanent tenant. Meanwhile, the old Kings Park, known as the Shark Tank, teems with life as the home of the Sharks rugby team, even though it is smaller and less modern. Montreal, Olympic Stadium and Stade Saputo. Distance, 157 meters. Across the ocean, in Montreal, Canada, 2 stadiums, Olympic and Saputo, are separated by the alleys of the Botanical Garden. On one side, we have the monumental, futuristic Big O, which was created as an icon of the 76 Games and became one of the most expensive stadiums in world history, earning the nickname the Big O because it took 30 years to pay off. Right next to it stands its opposite, the intimate, typical football Stade Saputo, financed largely by a private family to give a home to the Impact team in the MLS. Los Angeles, LA Memorial Coliseum and BMO Stadium. Distance, 114 meters. We fly to the City of Angels. In Exposition Park stand 2 stadiums of completely different character, the historic Coliseum and the modern BMO Stadium. The Coliseum is a living monument to sport, the only stadium in the world to host the Olympic Games 3 times. Its neighbor, BMO Stadium, is a breath of fresh air, the first open-air stadium in LA since the 60s, built specifically for Los Angeles FC players on the site of a former sports arena. Dundee, Tannadice Park and Dens Park. Distance, 112 meters. We move to Scotland to Dundee. Just one street, Sandeman Street, and a symbolic 112 meters separate Dens Park and Tannadice Park. It's a phenomenon on a global scale because nowhere else in the UK are rivals so close to each other. The derby between the D's and the Terrors is, however, exceptionally friendly. The older Tannadice Park is famous for its unusual shape and record attendance at a match against Barcelona, while the neighboring Dens Park is a classic British venue with characteristic V-shaped floodlights. Helsinki, Olympic Stadium and Bolt Arena. Distance, 81 meters. We fly to the far north to Helsinki. In Finland, the Olympic Stadium and Bolt Arena are basically one complex, separated from each other by 81 meters. The monumental Olympic Stadium is an icon of functionalism. After a thorough renovation in 2020, it retained its wooden character and gained an underground athletics track. Right next to it stood the intimate Bolt Arena, the home of the country's biggest club, HJK Helsinki, which plays on artificial turf year-round and visits its big brother only for European nights or major derbies. Rabat, Stade Prince Moulay Abdallah and Stade Olympique. Distance, 73 meters. The second step of the podium belongs to Africa and Rabat, Morocco. Within one sports complex, Moulay Abdallah, stand 2 new stadiums, separated by just 73 meters. The old merited giant was demolished so that an ultra-modern, typical football Stade Prince Moulay Abdallah for nearly 70,000 spectators could be built in its place, prepared for the Africa Cup of Nations final and the 2030 World Cup. But because Rabat didn't want to lose the prestigious Diamond League, a smaller 21,000-seat Stade Olympique with an athletics track and a characteristic crescent-shaped roof was built right next to it. Paris. Parc des Princes and Stade Jean-Bouin. Distance: 18 meters. Our ranking closes with Paris. This is where the absolute record falls. Parc des Princes and Stade Jean-Bouin are separated only by a street and an absurd 18 meters. Since 2025, after Paris FC's promotion to Ligue 1, this street has become the border of Le Derby Parisien, the only such rivalry in the world where you can literally kick a ball from one stadium to the other. The legendary Prince's Park is a monumental shell by visionary Roger Talabot, an icon of French football. Meanwhile, the Jean-Bouin standing opposite, rebuilt in 2013, is covered with thousands of lace-like concrete panels, creating a modern, irregular form. Which nearby stadium pairs did we miss in this video? Drop your picks in the comments. For more football stories, check out our social media, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.